Welcome back to your favorite low production YouTube channel. If you don't know who I am, my name is Andy from High Performance Health. This is a channel dedicated to providing you with real and practical health education that is not intended to diagnose or treat anything that you have going on. I'm not a doctor by any means. I'm just a dude on the internet that likes interesting stuff, and I hope to provide you with stuff that you can try out, and maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But today we are talking again about sleep, but more specifically everything in terms of sleep timing. And so the last video I mentioned we're starting a little sleep series. Sleep is something that I definitely think is very overlooked in the health and at least fitness industry as well too. Something that definitely can play a huge factor in everyday life, such as your happiness, such as your drive, such as your physique, your strength, body fat percentage, whatever the case is. Sleep is definitely one of those important functions, and it should happen ideally every day. So it's something that we definitely need to talk about, and unfortunately most people I come across at least seem to have poor sleep qualities. And so these are some of the things that have helped me, and hopefully they can help you as well. So in the last video we talked about how it is important to set your sleep duration for certain periods that would work with your circadian rhythm. And so I kind of not debunked, but sort of swayed against the typical get your 8 to 10 hours and said pick a time, definitely. Just a quick little recap so that we're not kind of completely lost in this video, but of course if you want to dive into all of the specifics in that video, feel free to check out the previous video. It's in our playlist for this sleep series. But just a quick little recap. I said if you are a person that is normal sleep, we basically want to choose a sleep time based on our circadian rhythms that would tend to have our alpha brainwaves or brainwaves that would produce awakening, and we want to work with that, not work against it. So we don't want to wake up during our REM cycles or during deep sleep. And so because of that, I said pick a time if you're a normal person, which would be 7.5 hours. That is typically the ideal time when our body leaves that final little REM cycle and kind of enters that awakening state that would naturally wake up if you don't set your alarm. If you're someone that needed an extra amount of sleep, so you're a heavy sleeper, or you definitely want some more sleep as opposed to the normal person, I argue the fact that it's more beneficial to go straight to 90 minutes after that, which would be another complete sleep cycle, all the way to 9 hours of sleep per night, as opposed to anything like 8 hours or 8:30. And then of course on the opposite end, if you don't need as much sleep as a normal person, that would be 90 minutes less than 7.5 hours, which would be 6 hours of sleep. So assuming you have that, now we're going to talk about like when should those hours happen, right? Is it beneficial if you're 7.5 hour sleeper? Is it beneficial to do a midnight to 7:30 or a 10 to 5:30 or whatever the case may be? And the simple answer to this is it depends, right? And so everybody's different. We all have different schedules, whether that be work schedules, whether that be just practical schedules. If you want to gym in the morning, if you want to gym in the afternoon, whatever the case might be, it's definitely something where you have to fit it into your practical life. It's not something that's like completely scientific based. What I will say is this: humans are not meant to be nocturnal. That is the reason why we do fall asleep in the evening, at night while it's dark. It's dark for a reason, and our bodies work with that. We're not meant to be nocturnal. There's a lot of interplay between sleep and light receptors, photon receptors, blue light, all that stuff that we've kind of heard about, which we'll dive deeper in the series. But for right now, we'll just kind of accept the fact that it should ideally be something that happens overnight. And so I'm going to give two scenarios, one for the average, at least American, that's kind of working a 9 to 5, and then someone that could create their own schedule if they wanted to, and what that would look like. So we'll first start with the person that typically works the 9 to 5. And so what that really looks like is you have to be at work at 9. Right? Assuming that the average American travels, 30 minutes to their job, that's probably on average. Ideally, you would have to wake up at least 30 minutes before if you want to get there on time. Now, it goes without saying, consistency is king. And so first off, before anything else, consistency is going to be king. It would not do any benefit if you're perfect one day and completely off the next day. And so that looks like, let's say if you're a 7.5 hour sleeper, it really wouldn't be beneficial if you fell asleep at 10 p.m. on one night, 2 a.m. the next night, midnight, and then back to 10 a.m. and then 9 and then 2 a.m. It's just like pick a time, stick to it. And so now we're just going to figure out like the pick a time part of it. And so let's get into a little bit of the specifics. So a lot of the body's response has to do with cortisol in terms of waking up. It was kind of typically touted, so I'll go into this graph here. It's always kind of touted like cortisol spikes at 8 a.m. But really what happens is that it spikes about an hour after you wake up or are approaching waking up. And so typically that looks like, for this 55-year-old male, you see here at 8 a.m. where cortisol level is the highest concentration that it will be throughout the day. But this is assuming that this person wakes up at 7 a.m. And so on the study that they conducted, they had these males waking up at 7 a.m. It is also the same for females as well, right? So no change there, just in the amounts, not necessarily the concentrations of like the peak concentrations versus the time itself. And so really what it says is that if you wake up at 7 a.m., and they have like this typical like 8 a.m. cortisol spike, it really goes to say that it's basically an hour after you wake up. And so with that being said, obviously we all kind of know that cortisol is like our body's stress hormone. This is done intentionally for the body to actually wake itself up, become alert. This isn't something where you're going to wake up feeling stressed, but cortisol is something that is produced by the adrenal glands to wake you up. You don't want to like kind of open your eyes but you're still asleep and like you're half like lucid dreaming. So like cortisol is there to wake you up, not meant to really stress you out. With that being said, we should want to time this cortisol spike that would make the most sense for the practicality of your day, going to your job. And so really what you don't want to end up doing is have this cortisol spike that's naturally occurring to help wake you up, and then add in extra cortisol from things like normal stress, like driving in traffic or trying to get the kids away, going to school and everything like that. That's where you get that feeling of stress and you're starting off the day on the wrong foot, okay? And so really what this looks like is, in my personal opinion, I would like to wake up at least 1 hour before I have to do anything that would require any sort of stress or that would induce some sort of stress, like driving in traffic, things like that. So if it takes you a half an hour to drive to work and you know that you have to be there at 9 a.m. in order to be on time, then you have that cortisol that's kind of from the stress release from driving in traffic at around 8:30. I would want to wake up at least an hour before then, so about 7:30. Gives you an hour and a half of just like kind of like a steady cortisol release to wake yourself up. You get a full hour before the real stress happens, so where you can just kind of wake up. You don't have to add any extra stressors to your day. You can kind of just set yourself off with the right foot, plan your day, whatever the case might be. Get some light in your eyes if you're into that, but really just kind of let yourself wake up naturally. And so assuming that's your schedule and you are someone that is a normal person that needs that 7.5 hours of sleep like we talked about, that means you would wake up at midnight, or you would fall asleep at midnight. And so your sleep schedule would be from midnight or 12 a.m. to 7:30 in the morning. Then you wake up, do whatever for an hour, just kind of get ready for the day, take a shower, or whatever the case might be, and then wake up the kids or then drive to to your job, whatever the case is, and you still have that hour and a half beforehand to where you can just kind of wake up normally and be ready for the day. Now just shift over all of the times that I just said to fit your schedule. And so if your job requires you to start at 7 a.m. and it's all the other same conditions, then basically you just bump that 2 hours before then. So you fall asleep at 10 p.m., wake up at 5:30 in the morning, get to your job by 7 a.m., right? Now, if you're someone that only needs to sleep for 6 hours in the night, you're not someone that needs too much sleep, you function quite well off of 6 hours of sleep, then you just follow that. So it would be, assuming you're going to your job at 9 a.m. and you want that hour and a half before you have to be at your job that we talked about, then you would go to sleep at 1:30 in the morning, wake up at 7:30 in the morning, and then go to your job at 9 a.m. Now, of course, this is all to fit into the practicality of your day. I'm going to get rid of that. That all goes to fit into the practicality of your day. Really, what happens is if you really want to like hone in and like optimize your sleep schedule and you have the ability to make your own schedule, what I would like to do, at least personally, is to time it with the light of the day as well. And so if you know that the sun rises at 6 a.m. and you are someone that needs 6 hours of sleep, I would fall asleep at midnight, right? It's more natural. That's how our bodies are kind of meant to operate. We're meant to operate. A large part of our body and waking up is from the light receptors in our eyes. And so as it gets a little bit brighter in our rooms and like the sun's kind of creeping in, those lights will trigger the little light receptors in your eyes. Even though they are closed, it's still like a little bit brighter. Like you can, I don't know, practice this right now. If you want to close your eyes and then cover them, it's a lot darker versus when you open, like, you know, put your hands off of your eyes. That's going to help you wake you up, right? It's going to produce serotonin. That's the thing that's like feelings of wakefulness. The cortisol will start to kind of rise a little bit to help wake you up as well too. And so if you really wanted to optimize it, you would optimize it around the light schedule. And so obviously the light schedules are always changing, the sunrise schedules, based on what time of year it is. And so you would just work backward from that time. And so if it rises at 6 a.m. during, I don't know, March, then you would fall asleep at 12 a.m., assuming you need only 6 hours of sleep. And then, of course, if it rises at 8 a.m. in January, or whatever the case is, then you would just fall asleep at 2 a.m. But that's if you really want to hone in on that. I'm still a fan, honestly, of just like do the most basic things that make the most sense. You don't have to be absolutely perfect. Just do the large movers, which is basically choose a sleep duration that works for you, stay consistent with it, and something that works well with your schedule. Those are really the three big things that I have practiced that have helped me, and hopefully they'll help you too. I hope that all kind of makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, feel free to leave a comment. I can clarify it. But that's pretty much all I have in terms of the sleep like frequency, I guess you can kind of say, or like the timing specifically of like when. And we already covered the how much in the previous video. If you're someone that is like, well, I want to fall asleep at these times, but I have trouble falling asleep, like I really do want to get on a schedule, but I have trouble falling asleep, that's what we're talking about in the next video. Everything trouble falling asleep or trouble getting to sleep. And we'll talk about all of my kind of like natural remedies or habits that I do that have gotten me to at least consistently, more consistently than before, fall asleep at the same time so I can actually be in rhythm. So we'll get into that in the next video. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll catch you in the next one.